Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Torri Webster. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me today. I have much more peaceful energy this week than last, so thanks for bearing with me through that very chaotic, overtired episode. Now, I'm in my wellness era, so I'm going to give you a bit of a weekly recap of what I've been up to in Toronto. This is kind of my jig. I travel so much, so when I am home in Toronto, it's kind of my safe haven. I like to dive into my wellness vibes because I leave for Santorini this afternoon and I do think I will be drinking my weight in Aperol Spritz for the next 11 days. So I really have to offset that. So last week I was in my health and wellness era and I need to update you on some really cool new places in Toronto. So there was this awesome new opening called Trove and it's kind of a wellness hub, but there's everything. There was a salt cave room, which was really lovely. We did a really deep yoga, but when I say yoga, it was more like an extensive meditation, 1 hour of deep meditation, which if that was every yoga class, I would do yoga a lot more often, but they're calling it yoga. And I think that's great because the mental health, mind, body, soul connection is so important. It's not just about working out your body. You have to work out your mind. So we did this awesome yoga class. And then I also did a LED light therapy and I got an IV for the first time. I was a bit terrified about that. And I've also heard about B vitamin overdose. I am not a doctor, do not listen to me, but I was really nervous about getting a IV because I had a friend at Coachella basically overdose on vitamin B and she was really, really sick from it. Anyways, I'm not a doctor. Don't speak to your healthcare professional. I'm just saying I was a bit nervous about the IV because of the vitamin B potential overdose. But in the end, I was totally fine. It didn't hurt. There was registered nurses giving us the IV. So it was really kind of a lovely experience. And I hung out with my girlfriends. We had smoothies. We did IVs. We did the LED light therapy, the yoga, the salt cave room. And then there's also a cold plunge room, but I didn't do that at that location. But that brings me to my other update. So then yesterday, so that was at the beginning of the week. Then yesterday, I went to Sula Fast. Now, if you've never been to Sula Fast in Toronto, there's actually a location in Los Angeles now too. So if you're in the US, you can go there. If you're in Canada, in Toronto. When I first started on TikTok 4 or 5 years ago, I was invited to try this epic facial called Sula Fast, which in French means underneath the face. And I go to this facial. It's insane. They were the first facial where I ever got a buccal massage, which is when they massage the inside of your cheeks. Looks crazy in video content. And I recorded the whole thing for TikTok and I posted it on TikTok and it went super viral. And the owner, Amanda, is truly so lovely. She has a heart of gold. And she called me a few days after the video went live and she was so appreciative of the content that I had posted and the community that I had reached. And she got all these new customers and it was honestly just such an amazing organic exchange. Cut to, so this was 5 years ago, cut to yesterday, she has me into her new location in Yorkville. It is unbelievable. To watch her business go from 0 to 100 is one of the coolest experiences I've ever seen. And to know that I even played just even a small part in any level of that success is so cool. And honestly, what makes the job of a content creator so rewarding, because when you do get to impact these small businesses, it feels incredible. So this amazing New Yorkville location, it has everything you can imagine. But yesterday I kind of did a full body experience. So I started with this, I believe it's called an EMS body suit. And it's almost like this electromagnetic bodysuit that goes in your body and it shocks every muscle in your body while you do a 20-minute workout. Again, not a doctor nor a scientist. I'm only speaking about the very brief wellness experiences I've had, but it was really cool. I'm quite sore today because it felt great on the body. And Amanda was saying that people do it. You can only do it twice a week because it basically puts your muscles in atrophy and almost like fight or flight. So you really can't do it all that often because your muscles obviously need time to recover properly. But it was just such a unique, cool wellness experience. Then after that, I went into the sauna and cold plunge room. I did 20 minutes in the sauna and then I did the cold plunge. The cold plunge shocked my system. It was colder. I do Othership in Toronto as well, but that was shocking. And you know what's interesting? So Othership is probably the only other time I've ever done cold plunges in a class format. And I find I get inspired when there's a lot of people around me, and I'm also no quitter. So I don't want to be the first one at Othership to get out of the bathtub because no. So typically I will sit for the full 2 minutes at Othership because I just don't want to be a quitter. Yesterday I was alone. So that was an interesting awakening for me. Amanda was really good. She gave me, some sound bath energy in the background, and she was really kind. She said, "What's your favorite song right now?" Obviously, it's Taylor Swift's new album. More on that quickly in a few moments. But so we played one of my favorite songs on the album and I got through it. I almost stayed in for 3 minutes. I felt amazing. And then I did head therapy. What is that, you ask? It was the craziest thing ever. It was like gua sha on the scalp. It was so many things. It was actually epic. It was very, very cool. It was one of the most extensive wellness experiences I think I've ever had, like beyond them paying so much attention to the scalp, where apparently we also like hold a lot of tension, trauma, all of that. It was a big release in that sense, but then she also did a lot of like releasing in the traps. Anyways, I hope I'm inspiring you. Check out all of this new wellness stuff in Toronto if you're into this. I find it really rewarding, and I also find it just sets me up for success, not only in my personal life, but in my business life. If you can show up as your healthy, most fantastic self, then you're always going to deliver your best work. So that's that on that. One quick note about the new Taylor Swift album. I didn't know if I was going to be obsessed with it at first listen. I had a 9-hour flight, as you know, back from Munich last week, and I listened to it the whole way home. I gave every song a fair chance. And on first listen, I definitely had maybe 5 favorites. Interestingly enough, I now am hyper obsessed with this album. I love all the songs that I didn't like on first listen, like The Smallest Man in the World, like all of those songs I'm obsessed with. And I feel like TikTok perpetuates that as well. Like I start to hear little cut downs on TikTok and then I get more into it. Anyways, all that to say, I'm fanning again. I'm standing Taylor again. I mean, not that I didn't, but I just am obsessed with this album, and which is an unpopular opinion, I think, because a lot of people are not fully in love with it. But anyways, that's an aside. I do love Taylor. Okay, so the topic of the week. Now, this stems from a very interesting thing that happened to me this week. So the topic of the week is, what does the role of an influencer actually include, and what tools and resources do I use to create success as a creator? Now, for backstory, I had a work call the other day, and we are moving, as you're all aware. And so we were trying to pitch a company on working together. And this is not abnormal for me. I work on pitches all the time. I work on, touch base calls all the time. Very normal to just have a connect with someone and kind of hear if they want to work with you or if there's an opportunity to collaborate. Very normal. What was not normal was that I logged onto this call perfectly on time, and I don't want to say what the business was, but it was some marketing folks that are definitely quite a bit older than me. So they don't necessarily have a ton of insider background in the social media influencer space. So I log on to this call at 9 a.m. and I guess the head of marketing guy just didn't realize that I was on the call. So I'm entered into this digital meeting room, and the woman who is like the lead marketing head is basically talking shit about me while I'm on the call. Now, obviously my ego was bruised. It's 9 a.m. I'm joining this Zoom call with good energy to have a pitch, and she's basically talking shit about influencers. Now, there's 2 ways I can look at this. There's one way, which is, oh, wow, that's, that hurts my feelings. That's impacting my livelihood. You're attacking my livelihood in a way, all of those things. Or there's the perspective, which is, I can appreciate that this is a new art, a new world, a new media, all of that. And we have to educate in order to be welcomed into rooms the way that we want to be welcomed into rooms, which is obviously with respect, but also with the understanding that this truly is a job and that we are working a million miles a minute to make this look easy. And that's the reality, right? Like when someone makes their job look easy, you're like, oh my God, they're not working. Well, just because somebody makes it look easy doesn't mean it's not work. So that's what prompted this episode today, because I want to chat a little bit about the branches that is the role of influencer and how all of those branches impact the final result. And this episode is less for creatives and much more for people like that woman who wanted to slight me on that call. Yeah, it's for people that don't get what we do. So let's dive into it. Yeah. Thank you. Oh. Thanks. No worries. Does that look good? Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's jump into it. First, there's the creative branch. This is all of the tasks that fall under the influencer, but what I would deem the creative parts of the job. So the first, creating content. Obviously, this is probably the number one ask of creators and influencers, and also what most of our days consist of. Now, how do I bring my content to life? Every single influencer is going to have a different answer to this. Everyone has different resources and everyone has different teams. I have been working alone on my Instagram and TikTok content for like 5 or 6 years. So for a long time. I mean, TikTok, I only started in the pandemic, so 4 years, but Instagram for a long time. So there was a time where I would rely more on photographers, but that was in the early days of Instagram when everything was much more photo heavy. And my boyfriend, as you may know, is a cinematographer. So that kind of made my life a little easier because he would follow me around with a camera and shoot photos of me. That's kind of probably the only time I've really had someone to rely on in terms of content. So now I just have a tripod and a dream because I create everything myself. When I had to be challenged to create TikTok content and I realized that everything was heading into video, I also realized I needed to become an editor. So this is the interesting part. This to me is the most tedious part of the job. Sometimes I'm very rewarded by the job of editor because you can shoot things and just sit there and say, holy fuck, like what did I just shoot? There's nothing here. And then the job and the aesthetic can come alive in the edit. And I obviously have had that experience where I've saved it in the edit. You know, you've always heard the producer say, they saved it in the edit. Yeah. Every creator has kind of their special sauce. I would say mine is not necessarily editing, but I get by. And I still edit everything on my own. I edit on CapCut. So that's one of the tools that I leverage to edit. And then the other tool, and I recommend to especially creators just getting into the game, is learn how to use Final Cut Pro. And there's a few reasons for this. So I like how organized Final Cut Pro feels, and you really feel like you can build a repertoire of your entire work under one system. Now, CapCut is similar, but it's finicky, and I feel like I've lost edits or I've lost content. It'll trip out or jig out, and like you just kind of can lose some of your work. And as we all know, our work is our value. So we want to make sure that we're keeping all of our data as safe as possible. I do find using Final Cut Pro a little bit more time consuming because it means drawing in all of your content from your phone into your computer. When you use content on Final Cut Pro, you're kind of dragging all of if you shoot on iPhone, again, we can chat about tools. I mostly shoot on iPhone. So again, it's up to what feels most comfortable to you. Shooting on DSLR obviously looks crispy and it looks amazing, but sometimes super high quality content can also come across really commercial, can come across forced. So there's all those kind of things that fall into it. iPhone content can feel really relatable. It can feel really like the audience is on the journey with you. So just for a typical video, I would usually just shoot on my iPhone and edit in CapCut. If I'm shooting branded content and they have really specific needs, maybe I'll shoot on DSLR and edit in Final Cut Pro. So just giving you a little behind the scenes of like what that piece kind of looks like. Awesome. Okay, so now once we've shot the content and now we've edited our content, there is the final step. Now, this step is often overlooked by people like that woman who was on my Zoom call with me. This is a really time-consuming step. This is the step where you actually have to compile everything. This means getting all your copy organized, your captions, getting all of the text, if you're doing, closed captions, making sure that it lines up properly in each platform. So not only do you maybe have to do a version for Instagram Reels, but you'd also have to do a version for TikTok. It's really time-consuming. And then you actually have to physically, obviously, go online and post the content. So that kind of wraps up what I believe is the creative, overarching branches of the job. But then there's the whole other side of the job, which is the business side. Now, admin. Some people love it, some people hate it. This includes things like invoicing clients. This includes, in the influencer world, unboxing mailers, which is obviously a hilarious part of the job, but kind of does fall under admin, because what ends up happening is you get an influx of all these new PR products and you have to kind of sit there and differentiate, okay, what do I want to create a story about? Like, what do I actually want to talk about to my audience? What is a product that I think maybe is lovely, but just not the right fit for me, and I could pass on to, a women's shelter or a mutual friend or whatever. So there's different like pockets of how you might want to donate different products. So it does kind of feel like a bit of a job sometimes. And just a quick aside on influencer mailers, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions about this. So, because one of the most popular things I see on TikTok is influencers unboxing PR mailers. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is PR mailers have actually been around forever. It just used to be that the mailers would go to traditional media. So if you think about a conglomerate or a company like Elle Canada, for example, and they have their fashion segments, their makeup segments. Back in the day, a Too Faced makeup, for example, would send their latest mascara to the beauty editor at Elle, and that beauty editor would decide if they were going to write editorial content and include it in coverage for the brand in the next upcoming segment. All of that is still the same. It's just now targeted at influencers, which is just very interesting to consider, because I think that sometimes people see it as gifts, gifting, unsolicited gifting has been a word I've used in the past. But what it really is brands probing to see if there's a way that they can possibly fit in to an upcoming story that you might be telling. So that could look as simple as, right now I'm moving. I had this amazing company reach out and say, hey, we'd love to send you some linen for your bed. And I said, oh, fabulous. Okay, so that feels like a story that makes a lot of sense. I'm moving. I'm going to be chatting about my home renovations. I can feature your new linen. So that's where the gifting and the influencer mailer is a perfect fit. Or another example, I'm hosting a long weekend brunch. I need, the newest Hampton Water Rosé delivered to my house for the occasion. And the brand is sitting there saying, hey, we're going to send you some bottles. But it goes both ways. Like, the value in the brand sending it is to end up in the influencer storytelling the way that it traditionally would in the media. And I do feel like sometimes it's impossible as creators to keep up with all of the newness. And I'm just being honest about that. Like, there is a sense of overwhelm when it comes to product, and most influencers would agree with this. There's only so many lipsticks you can use. There's only so many foundations. And the reality is, we are like every consumer. We have our favorite products and we stick with them, and we are tried and true with the brands that we stan and the brands that we love. So anyways, that's a total aside on influencer mailers, but just wanted to throw that in under the admin of the job. Okay. Then we head into contracting. This is, again, one of the pieces of the job that I believe takes up the most time. It's the most, it's the one that if you fuck up, you're in trouble. So you have to be really conscientious of your contracting. Now, I read my own contracts, and I amend my own contracts. But that does not come without a lot of time and training and insight into what I know works and what doesn't. I know what to look for. I'm not a lawyer, although I could be a great entertainment lawyer. I do think maybe in my future, imagine I become Kim, I go back to law school. I could see that for myself, to be honest, because I would love to dive deeper into entertainment law. I love everything about copyright, IP, you name it, I'm into it. So anyways, again, an aside, but that is a really time consuming part of the job. Negotiating brand deals is also a really time consuming part of the job. This is where there's a divide in the industry. There are influencers that see the creative and the business as a combo, and they do everything themselves because it's their name and business at the end of the day that they're running. I fit under that camp. That being said, I am working with an amazing new team in LA, and they are so supportive, and I hope that they can help me grow my business. But that's after literally nearly 10 years of me doing this on my own. So you really have to be conscientious about when you feel it's time to bring a team on board. And I do think that this is a step that influencers take too early in their careers. So there's another camp of creators that have a team and they own all of the creative branch as influencers, and they rely on their team to fulfill all of the business side of the industry. Here's why that's good. It's good because it gives you so much more time to be creative, to be on this side of the camp. Why is it bad? Well, you're giving up a lot of control. Now, again, every creator is different. But if you like to be a part of those one-on-one relationships with your clients, if you like to be a part of the early stage conversations where you can be a part of the pitches and help grow your business and maybe create opportunities that wouldn't otherwise come your way, then sometimes it can be really hard to give up all of that freedom to a team that then is kind of doing all of that negotiation and contracting on your behalf. Now, again, that is going to be a different answer for every single creator, but just giving you some things to consider. I don't think one is better and I don't think one is worse. I just think it's a different experience. I really like what I've done in my journey where I learned everything the hard way. I did it all myself. I really had to see what worked, what didn't, where did I mess up in contracts where I want to be protected more fully in the future. And then now I have my team where I can leverage them, but they're adding value to what I've already built. They're adding value to the brand name, to the idea that, you know, if someone mentions my name in the industry, they're hopefully saying, oh, she's a joy to work with. Like, you can't pay for that type of good marketing. And I've also heard the nightmare stories where, you know, you have agencies and brands saying, oh, we've blacklisted that management company because they're a nightmare to work with. You know, we've all heard those stories. So it's just something to consider as you kind of go through the motions of a potential career in this path. Some miscellaneous jobs. So that we have the creative, we have the business, and now we have the miscellaneous. Because this is the thing, we wear 100 hats, okay? We are multifaceted beings, us creators, even though we get no respect in the industry. Sometimes we also have to be our own wardrobe people, which means sourcing outfits for shoots. It means obviously staying on top of trends to a certain extent when it comes to creating TikToks or Instagrams. And that's a really tricky part of the job. Obviously, taking things on loan works. Obviously, you know, borrowing from friends, borrowing from brands, getting gifted from brands, like all of those things play into it. But wardrobe is a big part of the creator lifestyle. Sometimes we are writers. Sometimes we have to write our own scripts. Sometimes we develop scripts with our brand clients or for things like, you know, the podcast. Obviously, this is not a scripted podcast, but some people might want a scripted podcast and they would have to physically write out a script to do this. And sometimes we're our own producers. Now, this podcast is the one thing where I have an amazing producer, James, on the back end who helps me with everything, because this is the thing. Sometimes it's impossible to do the one-man job. Like, we can't wear every single hat and feel like we're going to be successful in every single piece of the puzzle. So there are times where we have to reach out, we have to rely on other creatives, and we have to, you know, be as strategic as we can in order to make ourselves appear successful and also appear like we are viable to work with when it comes to brand partnerships and all of that. So all of that to say, that was very long-winded. All of that to say, this is a job. Not everybody sees it as one. Exhibit A, the woman on my Zoom, not me coming for her. Also, imagine I really came for her. The thing is, I do want to say, I don't think that was a bad experience because look, everything is copy. Everything leads me down a path that ultimately gives me another perspective or lets me see something from another perspective. But the last thing I'll say on that is it is challenging to be a young creator and to be in meeting rooms where people just genuinely, 1, don't understand what I do as a job, 2, don't respect what I do as a job, and 3, have no understanding of all of the things that I just talked about, all of the skill sets, the hard skills, the soft skills that we've all had to build as creatives over the past decade. And so this is not me sitting here being like, woe is me. She was so mean to me. She made me feel sad. That's not it. I'm just saying I want to challenge that status quo. I want to challenge the idea that we can't show up in rooms and have people understand what we do. Like you would never walk into a room and be like, you're a lawyer. Like you would never do that. You'd be like, that's a sick job. I love that for you. I want to get to a place where I feel like that's how we look at jobs under the influencer space. My boyfriend's a cinematographer and I see this at dinner parties all the time. Oh my God, you're a filmmaker? You're a cinematographer? That's so incredible. You're going to win an Oscar one day? Because it all falls under traditional media. It's all things that everybody understands. Oh, you're an influencer? Your girlfriend's an influencer? That's cool. All right. Doesn't say asshole on the checks. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, and I will see you at the next one. Hopefully I won't be as zesty.